Greetings, travelers. My name is Nick Murphy.
And my name is Satchell Drakes.
And welcome to the Cinephilia Anonymous Telecast. We are going to take you on an interstellar adventure through the darkest corners of your mind to unlock your hidden passion for cinema.
How you doing, man? It's been a minute.
I'm great, man. How are you today?
I'm chilling, you know.
Yeah, right? Dude, we're talking about a great movie this week. We're talking about There Will Be Blood.
Yeah, I'm pretty stoked. This is definitely I don't think we've ever covered a film quite like this, stylistically and like narrative wise. I don't know. Yeah,
I think there's some interesting topics in there, and upon rewatching it, I found a lot of great subtext that I think I missed the first time. That I really kind of like. This one idea kind of clicked, and then it just like and it just opened up all these other ideas.
When was the last time you saw this? Was it in theaters? Because that was the last time that I saw it.
I saw it in theaters. I really enjoyed it in theaters. I thought it was great. And then I bought it on DVD, and then I bought it on Blu-ray a couple years ago.
For that mean collection. For the listeners who have seen the intro to the YouTube version of this podcast, that amazing wall is not from a store. That is Nick's special room.
I know. It's so out of control.
Special time.
It's
great.
So ridiculous.
It's great.
It's so hard. So like for the listeners, so my wife and I had a kid recently. So it's a shame because it's kind of taken up. It's just been turned into this extra storage room right now. So like I have this like little pathway to the wall, and then everything else is just full of like a bunch of stuff. I need to like. We keep saying we're gonna like clean it out one day, and like we're like we gotta clean it. And I was like, yeah, I gotta clean it because I got a file. There's literally a stack of DVDs. Like okay, so here I'm gonna show the camera. Here is just this like stack of DVDs that is sitting on my desk or Blu-rays that I need to like file away and stuff that I just haven't had a chance to. But yeah, I will get back to it and like restore it to its full glory and faith. You know what? Real quick side. I know I want to jump right into the movie, but
okay, dude.
Real quick side thing.
Let's do our thing. Let's catch up. You know.
Yeah, totally.
We're friends. You know.
Yeah, exactly. But like, so before my wife and I moved into our house, we had an apartment, and the apartment was cool because it had this really long wall. It was like the living room, a really long hallway down to like to the right was the bathroom, to the left was one bedroom, there was like a hallway closet, and then at the very end was our bedroom. So it had this super long wall, like I don't know, it had to be like 20, 30 feet long. And the shelves that I used on the wall there ran all the way down. So like when you walk down the hallway, it was just filled all the way down on the one side, and it looked really, really dope. Nice. That's the one thing I miss about our old apartment is like that super long wall. It just made my collection look way more impressive.
Dude, it still looks impressive. The laser discs, man.
I know. Laser discs. It's so ridiculous. I was on Amazon the other day and I was like, what laser disc do I not have that I could look for?
That's great.
Oh, man. But no, everything is good. So the last time I saw this movie was like probably like 2 years ago. So it was great jumping right back into it. I guess for the listener, There Will Be Blood came out in 2007. It was written and directed by Paul Thomas Anderson, starring Daniel Day-Lewis, and I think the understated Paul Dano. Who plays Eli, did a great job in the movie. And it was inspired by Upton Sinclair's novel Oil.
Yeah.
This film was critically acclaimed on a bunch of critics like top 10 lists for the best of the year for 2007. I read this interesting fact. In 2008, the film has been included in the 1001 Movies You Must See Before You Die book.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah.
Like I think the only other film I know that was in that was like Old Boy.
Yeah.
So some heavy hitters. Yeah.
Yeah, seriously. Super good. And on Rotten Tomatoes, 91% and 92 Solid. On Metacritic. I kind of thought it would be higher for that, but I think there were deserved. Yeah, I agree. It was really, really great. But like I went on, I was intrigued by that kind of lower number. I mean, 91. I mean, that's nothing to like turn your nose at. But I was like, there's got to be some people who just didn't appreciate it. So I read some kind of like negative reviews about the film, and like some were kind of just like, oh, you know, it's not, there's nothing, it's a good movie, but it's not for the masses, and that was their negative review of it. And then there were a couple like these like religious blogs that were kind of like reviewing the movie and said it's not like for families and portrays like religion in a negative manner and stuff. So that was their criticism of it. So that might be kind of why they're lowering that score. I mean, it's 91%, man. It's a great movie.
Yeah, it's a really good movie. I had a hard time. I almost personally have a hard time understanding how that movie could get lost on people. It seems pretty understandable.
Yeah.
It seemed very easy to track with.
It's definitely a slow burn. And it's a very
you earn the climax in a kind of way.
Oh yeah, do you ever? And it's a very character movie. You know, it's a very character centric movie. So you have to be invested in this character, and I think it's very easy to be put off by Daniel Day-Lewis's character of Daniel Plainview. He's just not a likable guy, and you very see that in the very beginning. You know, one of our listeners on our subreddit said, his name is Super Samicom, said, although I've never seen There Will Be Blood, Daniel Day-Lewis is a god. And I thought that was like a great sentiment because it's like, hey, he never seen the movie, but he knows Daniel Day-Lewis is like top of the top.
I was in Williamsburg not too long ago for this this comedy show hosted by Aries
Spears?
Aries Spears, yeah.
Yeah.
And there was this one comedian up there. And she had this amazing bit where she was talking about, like, I don't understand, like, men are, like, disproportionately obsessed with Daniel Day-Lewis. And, like, her speculation was, like, I think I have it figured out. Like, I think it's because Daniel Day-Lewis is, like, a cartoon of a man. And, like, all the guys are like, whoa, like a G.I. Joe. Like, they're like, whoa, that's a man. Like, that's a real man. Like,
yeah, dude,
he's dying because I was like, it's so true.
That is very true. He's like a actor Barbie. You know, you just dress him up and let him go. And he, like, Rebecca's my wife. She was asking me, she's like, what does Daniel Day-Lewis look like? And I was like, I honestly don't know. Like, he plays these characters and gets so absurd. Like, when I picture Daniel Day-Lewis, I picture Daniel Plainview, or I picture Bill the Butcher, or his character in like Last of the Mohicans, or like My Left Foot. Like, I don't know, or Lincoln. You know what I mean? Like, he just gets absorbed into these characters and just becomes them. So you're like, I don't need. Like, I literally had to look up what he looks like. Yeah, it's so crazy.
He just looks like a man.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my god. So what was your like initial, so the movie starts up, what was your initial thoughts on the movie as it unfolds?
So first you lay down like a premise.
Yeah. Oh yeah, please do. Yeah.
It's so this movie is about a traveling oilman and clever businessman, like both in one. Who set out to take advantage of California's oil boom in the early 1900s. I think right at the peak of the 1900s. Yeah. Like, I think it literally says 1900s.
I think it says, it says like 1902 is one of the years.
So this character played by Daniel is Daniel, right?
Yeah.
He's tipped off by Paul, who plays Paul.
You're right. I didn't even think about that. That's really interesting.
He's tipped off of this area in California that's sort of like inhabited by this small very inbred town of people. And apparently, like, this town is so rich in oil that it seeps through the top, you know. And Paul Sunday in the movie, he tips him off, and he's essentially like, if you pay me X amount up front, I will tell you where it is. And I'll give you a little bit of background information on it, and you can have at it and do your thing. And I guess we kind of learn later on that he uses that money to kind of run his own business and do his own thing, but essentially he wanted nothing to do with that community. And he was kind of just willing to, for lack of better terms, give them up. And he basically and changed the culture,
sold them out to the devil.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly, he did. And which I thought was really interesting. And you know, he pays him, Daniel pays him, and he goes and he drills for oil in this town and completely changes the culture, and he strikes it's all kind of based around this deal that he strikes with Paul's brother, Eli Sunday, who is the pastor of the local church there, who is fixated on essentially having great power over the town through his ministry. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's a little bit of a power. Would you call it a power struggle there? Like,
you know,
there's kind of like this interesting face-off between two men that are both equally unadmirable, right? But are after sort of like the same thing in essence, but in different ways, and it creates this dynamic competition between the two, and there's so much to think about in between, like this kind of power hungry pastor leading to like rule this small town through being manipulative, and this swarthy businessman who is totally out for jibbing whoever they can so that he can yield the greatest amount of profit for himself.
They really are cut from the same cloth. They're complete opposites, but at the same time, their goals and the way they achieve those goals are very, very similar. Which causes them to have odds with each other.
And what's interesting about that is, like, I think what's really interesting about that is that this is a film where there is no white hat or black hat, but you root for different people in different moments. Like when Eli first gets his beating, you're like, yes, vindicated. I was selfish, I am wrong. You know what I mean? Like, I was so down for that, but at the same time, it's like, well, I'm not in Daniel's corner either. Frankly, I want him to get his either, and he does later with the son. But I don't want to get ahead of myself. What was the question? You were asking a question.
Oh yeah, so like the movie. So the movie starts right, and one of our listeners points out the movie started with 14 minutes of no dialogue. Right.
Okay, I'm not alone.
Yeah,
then.
Otz said that on our subreddit. It was, I can't, like, I put the timer on, or not the timer, but I checked when the first line was spoken, and it's almost 15 minutes in. It's impressive, to say the least.
And it's not only the beginning, dude. Like the whole pattern of this film is a long stretch of silence, and then dialogue, and a long stretch of silence and then dialogue.
Yeah, and those silent parts really put you in this introspective kind of mode. Like the characters are very introspective in that sense, and then I could feel myself watching and then just kind of like sink in to kind of like to take these, because you're not given any dialogue or minimal interaction to really get into these characters' heads, and I feel like those are the times. Those silent parts is when you really get into Daniel. You know, you really start to like every time you see him, you can always see the gears turning in his head.
Yeah.
Like he's constantly analyzing and constantly observing. So, and I feel like you take on that mentality when you see him on screen. The first 15 minutes, I'm just watching and I'm like, what is he doing? What is he doing? Oh, okay. So he's putting dynamite in there. Oh, okay. Oh, he lit the fuse. Why isn't he he lit that fuse? And I was like, oh, why isn't he going faster? He should go faster. He lit dynamite.
Yeah.
And then I was like, well, I guess he knows what he's doing. You know? And so like
you have your own inner dialogue.
You're like, oh, I see. Oh my God, he broke his leg. Oh, wow. He found gold. Oh wow, he's a gold guy. Oh cool.
Yeah.
Oh, now he's an oil guy. Oh, I see. So you're really like trying to pick this character apart with minimal amount of information given to you as an audience member.
Even tragedy isn't like completely outlined for you. Like,
yeah,
you have to draw the connection on your own that his son HW isn't actually his son at all.
Yeah,
you know
and
what I mean?
they kind of start to,
and a tragedy completely plays out in complete silence.
Well, and it's a tragedy, but at the same time,
it's like an everyday thing.
Yeah, it feels like that's just like the life they live.
Yeah.
So I was watching that, and I was like, oh my god, I would not survive in
yeah, I know.
that
I thought that too. Yeah.
I was like, these guys are real men.
yeah. These guys are real men. No wonder
There's an interesting moment there where I guess HW's father dies tragically, and Daniel Plainview is just looking at this baby and just doesn't know what to do. Like, you just feel this hatred like seeping in.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe I was projecting, but he's just like, what am I going to do with this thing? Like, I don't know. That's the expression on his face, and like that's the conclusion I drew from it.
I didn't need an expression on his face. What are we gonna do next for me was pouring alcohol into a baby bottle and trying to get him to sip it.
Yeah,
that was like, how do I baby? Like, do you want to drink?
Yeah, exactly. This is what I drink. This means what you drink. Yeah. Although there was like, he's on the train with the baby, and the baby touches his face, and like I was like, oh my god, it's so cute. He loves the baby, And then he's talking to the town. He's like, my name is Daniel Plainview. This is my son, partner, HW.
So that's so good.
I picked this movie just so I could do my Daniel Plainview impression. That's not true.
I am impressed though.
But like, you really. For me, that was a turning point. It was like, oh, here's this rough guy, but like, oh, he has a soft side because he's going to take this baby in, and he's building this business, and he's making a family.
Yeah.
And then you realize that throughout HW's life, he's just a prop to further Daniel Plainview's
to make him seem trustworthy.
Struggle.
Like, he's a family man, therefore he can be trusted. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
And it works.
Yeah. Oh, one part I really liked with in the beginning part with all the oil and stuff. I felt like I was watching humanity evolve. It reminded me of like 2001, where they throw like the bone in the air and stuff, and like I felt like you're just watching these men figure this out. Like when he's drawing and he's sketching that the oil rig.
Yeah.
You're just like, oh my god, I'm watching man create fire. It was like that. So the revelation I had while watching this was, I knew religion was a big part of this movie just because it was. I didn't realize until rewatching this that, I mean, I knew it for Eli. Eli's character, like, religion is a huge thing.
Sure.
But then I started to think about it from Daniel's perspective, and religion is a huge part on Daniel, but religion of money and power,
right?
Like, that's his god, and that's the thing he like prays to.
There's
this moment where he wipes the oil from the bit in the beginning and like holds it to the heavens. I was like, oh, and I see. That's what he worships now.
Forehead. Oh, well,
and then baptizes the baby in it. Yep. Yeah. Oh man.
Oh my gosh, that's so powerful. I never stopped and thought about that part.
Yeah. Well, I think it's HW's father does it, but it's still the same kind of thing.
But still, it signifies like, and there are all these small things that he says where he's like, gold is gonna blow from outside of the ground. You know what I mean? Like where.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah, dude. And then, so that was like a big part of. I was like, oh, now I want to watch this from thinking about it like that. Daniel like baptizes Eli in that oil. Right, where they're having that. I don't know if it was mud. I assumed it was like
mud.
Okay, then maybe I think
he was just trying to disrespect him as much as he could.
Gotcha. Okay, well then,
but nonetheless, that value system is in place for him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
That was really powerful. Another thing that was really powerful, man, so much happened in the beginning that
it
laid
really
a foundation for the rest of the movie.
It's so smart. Those quiet moments, like you said, they are so poignant. There's one at the end that we'll talk about, which I thought was super powerful, and
sure.
The beginning is just so spot on with that. It just sets up the whole movie. It's so great.
I think another thing that silence kind of put to the forefront was the score. And for myself, I was paying so much attention to the soundtrack, and I think part of it is because I was sort of like, I guess the lack of dialogue forced me to focus on it. I mean, maybe not even. It was a great soundtrack anyway. But the one thing I realized was that the composition, the entire film, is in minor, and it's morbid and freakish the whole way. Like it's always this devious, demented like tone the entire film until the ending when Daniel says, "I'm finished."
Right, and then
it's positive and celebratory, but it's celebratory completely ironically. So even the fact that it goes major and positive, it's not it's not really that, right? And
no, it's just off-putting at that point.
Yeah, and it's only there for the sake of resolve, but not for the sake of a happy ending. And oh my gosh, there's something about that made this entire that made the conveyance of this entire narrative very, very morbid.
Yeah,
I want to find a better word for it, because obviously, morbid, it makes it seem like it can't be exciting. It was exciting. There were there were excitable parts, and there were parts that were very bombastic and stuff like that. But it was all very dark.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, those first notes start up in the score in that first shot, and my gut reaction was, "Are we watching a horror movie? Is this a horror movie? Is this like The Hills Have Eyes?" And then I was like, "It kind of is a horror movie. It is a moral horror movie." It's incredible. You put it so perfectly about the minor notes. That's so great. Hey, so Paul shows up to Daniel Plainview in a separate town, not the town that they go to eventually. So Paul shows up, and then Daniel and HW go to the Sunday Ranch, and then Paul shows up again, and I remember thinking in the theater, I was like, same actor. I was like, is he
right?
Like,
yeah.
Is he like scamming them? Is he like trying to like pretend that he's two different people? And like, I feel like there's definitely two brothers, right?
No, they're twins.
Yeah, they're definitely twins, because I thought like the split personality thing, like that popped into my head, and I was like, no, that's just like too easy and weird and out of place in this movie that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So yeah, definitely two brothers.
But it was the same actor that played both.
Yeah, same actor. It was Paul Dano that played both. And I found it really, really interesting when Daniel and HW go back to the Sunday Ranch and start negotiating about buying the land. Eli kind of asks them, "What church do you belong to?" And Daniel kind of politely dodges that.
Right. And he politely dodges a lot.
Oh,
just about anything that paints him in a not perfect light, he dodges.
I like Daniel's brother is like, "What happened to HW's mother?" He's like, "I don't want to talk about that anymore."
Like, he's like, right, yeah. He's like, "I don't want to talk about it anymore." Or like they'll be like, "Oh, so where's your son?" And then it'll be like,
"Oh, thank you for asking."
Thank you for asking. And then he's like, "So how's your son?" "Thank you for asking again." And also, "Thank you for asking." I was like,
dude. He is. I love
that he has a consistent tick. I think that part of the character development is so cool. You know what I mean? That he just can't get around. That there's this consistent shame in him, right? And it gets pulled out when Daniel's baptized, right? And he can't handle the fact that he actually has to admit to fallibility and say that he abandoned his son.
Yeah, and for me, like that dinner scene really sets up the dynamic between Eli and Daniel. So Eli tries to like pray with him. Daniel pulls away, and I think that moment like focuses on Eli, and it just becomes about him, and just like, well, that's his goal now. That's his mission, is to convert this man or I don't know. Better him something.
Definitely
you know?
not convert that man. Like both of
Yeah.
their like if I were to name both of their actual gods, I wouldn't say that Eli's god is like an actual like holy god as much as it's probably the idea of himself in power. Because I mean, even at the end of the film, he has no trouble admitting to being a false prophet, right?
Yeah.
So definitely to him, like if it were otherwise, I'd like to believe that he would be more hesitant or take a little bit more time, but he seemed completely willing to denounce God as complete superstition. And it seemed like throughout the entire film, religion was sort of his vehicle for commanding authority in a very cowardly way. And you kind of find out that he's a coward and that he's really, in a lot of ways, he's very incapable of leadership. So he would use these like performance-based moments of emotion, like when he does the whole like Pentecostal cast out spirits from like an old lady's hands and things like that. Like,
one thing I thought that was great about that is that he's like, "Get out, ghost," and he like pretends to throw it out, and like as he's heading toward the door, the camera pans and follows him, and Daniel is right there. He's like, "Get out, ghost," and Daniel is right there.
Yeah. Completely disinterested, like so.
Yeah, you know what? I do see what you're saying. You're right. It's not about like a god figure. It is more about themselves. I wrote down this note that they're almost like generals of two opposing churches.
Yeah.
Like a religious and a follower kind of thing, and a money and a power kind of thing. And then when I started to think about them more as a complete opposite of the spectrum kind of thing.
Right. You know, you're right. But when you say that, I redact, and I felt weird about it. I don't necessarily think it's that Eli is seeking out power as much he's seeking out, I guess it's power from a different name, right? But yeah, like followers and influence, you know what I mean? Because he seemed very fixated on like the show, right? Like not necessarily
well, they're both great actors. They're both like, Eli puts on this performance and sells these people this concept that he has this power and this command over them. And Daniel does the same thing. He puts on this act that he's about building up the community and education is so important to me. And he's like, really? He just wants to make enough money to get away from all of these people that he hates.
Yeah.
You know? And so they both have that. And then, so they both have a family member they both have a brother that betrays them. Right? I mean, more or less, like Daniel's brother turns out to not be his brother, but they both get put down and betrayed. You know, like Paul betrays Eli, but then also his father kind of betrays him. They both manipulate the town to further themselves and control the town. And I mean, I don't want to get into a whole big thing, but like religion and business is kind of about control. Like it's about, like, you know, if some people have said that that's what it is. I don't personally believe that, but you know, both of those things could be said when you're in like a position of power like that. It's about controlling the people under you, you know?
Right. And it's definitely, I'd say like in this universe, in this movie, that's definitely the case.
Yeah. And the way these two utilize those ideas and thoughts are spot on with that kind of control kind of thing.
Yeah.
Oh man.
I know,
right? We're just getting.
There's so.
We're just getting
like there's. Oh my gosh, there's so many. I mean, maybe the goal was to just figure out how. Like, I think it's almost like in the character development, the goal was like, okay, we have to piss everyone off. Like everyone has to leave hating at least one of these guys to their core.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like small things, like even Eli, who drove the entire conversation around essentially handing the town over to Daniel, places all the blame on his father for being a complete coward over when things don't go his way, it's just, oh my gosh, I wanted him to get his.
Yeah. Oh man, he definitely gets his. He's such a sad little man by the end of it. Well, why don't we take a break, and we'll come back and discuss more of There Will Be Blood.
No doubt.
We'll be back.